My game plan was to use the original undercollar for the undercollar on the vest, but the hair is running in the opposite direction that I'd like it to go. So I could use it and re-stretch this and probably get it to work out. I have, there's probably enough material there, but this end has a bad splice here and it's got another splice there. Coloration is kind of a little bit more obvious that it doesn't match. I don't want that on the right up at the neck of the coat. So we're gonna change this out, and I decided to use the sleeves. So I marked my top collar and my under collar. This is my top collar, under collar, and that's the sleeve. So on the other sleeve, so it should work good. I've got this one marked out too, and I'm gonna cut those out, join them up, and then tomorrow we'll take and cut out and mark the body of the vest. So these I don't even have to nail because there's no bubbles or ripples or anything in that sleeve, and that's kind of nice. So I'm gonna join these up after I get them cut out. This is dry now, and so the next step is to mark my pattern on it. So basically you just take your pattern, you set it on your fur, match your front edge where your facing goes, and then what I like to do is like to hold it and put it down with, hold it with a push pin. So I've already done that on this, and I've marked all the way around the edge with a pen, and then what I do is I cold tape it. So cold tape is a fabric tape that has an adhesive backing, and this gets put down. You just press it down, unroll it, and press it, and it goes on your seam. So here's where I'm going to cut this on the outside edge, and I put this along the outside edge all the way around where my pattern is marked. After that is done, then what I do is I take up my staples. I, have already done that on this, but it's just a matter of you just release your staples and then your goods come up and you check it to make sure how it looks. So what we're going to do next is we're going to brush this out, and then we're going to take and we're going to wet glaze this. So it's gotten a little bit of, hat hair from being nailed down. So you just take your wire brush, and I'm going to actually pin this down because otherwise I know it's going to move on me. And I'm going to pin this up at the corner, and you just take your wire brush, and I've already done the back here. You can see how that looks. Pretty nice and smooth. And it only takes about 15 minutes to dry. You take your water in a spritz bottle and you lightly mist it. And then you're just going to take your wire brush and you start at the top and you draw your wire brush down. Very simple. And what this does is it gets all the hairs going in the right direction. If you see a spot that's a little stubborn, you just go over it one more time. And when it's flat like this, it'll dry really nice and smooth. So see that? How nice that looks already? It's got a little spot right there. So once this is done, then we're going to let that dry. I've got a little spot up here by the neckline left to do. And then we'll be able to trim it. And the next step is to join it up. Next up is our project has dried overnight after I got done wet glazing that. And we're going to start cutting it out. I use a fur knife, They sell these at Samuel Bauer. You open your fur knife by lifting this lever. It comes open. You slide it open. And then you take your razor blade. You can buy the razor blades from them too, split razor blades. And you slip your razor blade in there. You slide this back down. And then you put your lever back down, and that holds your blade securely. So the blade is extremely thin. You can use like an X-Acto knife, but seriously, if you're going to do a lot of fur work, these blades and blade holders are what you want to use. So I usually, if I change a blade in one knife, I change a blade in both knives, because then I know I'm not going to grab a blade with a dull knife. Now when you cut, this is the thickness of your leather. You don't want to cut and put your blade in any thicker than the thickness of the leather. So you're going to use the tip, and you don't need to go deeper than that. You go deeper than that, then you're going to cut your hair. Your knife is designed to kind of like, it's like a paintbrush. You know, your little finger is the stabilizer. That's your rudder. You use your knife and you draw it down, and the whole time your little finger is acting like a stabilizer for the rest of your knife blade. It's easy to twist and run up. You can nick your skin to start the spot that you want to cut, and you know, then you just draw your knife. But that little finger is what holds your hand steady, because you want to elevate the goods while you cut. You don't cut flat on a table. You elevate your goods while you cut. So when I start cutting this, I'm going to start right here, probably at the top of this shoulder, and I'll cut with the direction that the hair should go. You don't cut against the hair, you cut with the hair. So if the hair is going down, you want to take your blade and you want to cut the same direction as the hair is going. We're going to, when you get done, what I like to see is, I'm going to start here on this, and I am going to take like a little nick right here at the end of this shoulder, and I'll come down. I'm going to go around my armhole and then down my side seam. When I get done with this, it's going to look like a cookie cutter. It's going to look like I cut the main part of the body out, and I'm going to have this whole piece of trim. I don't cut square across here. I don't come up here and start here to start cutting there. I cut exactly what needs to be cut. If for some reason I made an error, or if I need to make this bigger, I keep all of my scraps. I have a job bucket right by my table. Everything that I cut off goes into that job bucket, and I can resurrect and piece something if I need to from that job bucket. So this is going to look just like a cookie cutter after I got it cut out. I already did my front, and that's done. I've got my darts cut out. So we're going to finish cutting out this back, and then the next step is we're going to start joining it up. Just to give you an idea, so it's all trimmed, and you can see that whole piece is what I trimmed off all the way around. Now, when you're cutting, what you want to do is your knife needs to be sharp. If your knife doesn't cut like butter when you work on it, if it doesn't, then the blade's too dull. So get yourself a new blade. It should be nice and smooth, and you won't have a lot of extra hair that you've cut off to get in your way while you're sewing, and you won't have a lot of loose hair that's going to be popping up everywhere. The next thing that I kind of like to do at times is, before I start sewing, is I'll comb this edge that I cut all the way around. That'll get rid of any loose hair before I sew it up. Mink is, their mink on this type of thing, we're not going to have a lot of loose hair on this. So I'm pretty confident with that. But on long hair furs like fox and coyote, it's smart to brush that out before you start joining things up. When I start to join these up, usually what I do is I sew my darts first, and you sew from the bottom to the top of the dart. Then I'll sew my shoulder seams from the outside of the shoulder seam up towards the neckline on my shoulders. The next is the side seams, and I'll sew from the bottom up to the end of the armhole. If I need to, I'll tack it in a couple of spots, and of course I'll check that it's, you know, the correct length before I start. But that's usually the way that I start joining things up. After I get it joined up, this is the area that I'm going to put my pocket in. I've got that taped, so my pocket will go in, and then my collar will go on. The vest is joined up except for the collar, and I decided I'm going to press this before I put the collar on. So my pockets are in. I usually pre-make my pockets. It's got a piece of grosgrain ribbon that is sewn onto the velvet, and that is sewn into the coat. I usually try to put it on a leather strip. So anyway, that worked out. Sometimes it doesn't, but the darts are done. My side seams are done. Everything matched great. And the reason is because you mark your pattern correctly on your goods. You tape correctly. If you're not sloppy, things will match when you sew. On the shoulders, what I like to do is I take a piece of, this is just dime store felt. It's thin, but it offers a little cush. And it's going to help protect this seam on the shoulder from splitting. It'll keep that nice and tight. So this will have a set of shoulder pads that's going to go in this vest. It's a very, it's not really, it's more like it's a shoulder pad, but it's really thin. And what it does is it also helps protect that shoulder while it's hanging, so that seam won't split and open up. But we're going to use a medium warm iron, and I've just got a pressing block thing here, just a piece of 2x4 with a piece of muslin over it. And you just take your iron, and it's going to be hard for me to show you how to do this, but you just want to kind of like press that seam down. You don't want to have your iron too hot because you don't want to scorch your fur. So if you need to test it on a test piece first, do that. But I'm going to press my side seams, my front darts, and my back darts. I'm not going to do my shoulders because I don't want my shoulders to be done. And I'll also do my pockets, where I sewed my pockets. I'll put the collar on next, and that's over there. So after that's done, I'm going to put seam tape all the way around the outside edge, so when I go to finish it, I'll have something to sew down.